I shouldn't be telling you this, and the fact that I am should worry you. Not because it makes me weak, but because it means something inside me is starting to ignore rules I built my entire life around. You don't understand that version of me. The one you met? That was the polished surface, controlled, measured, untouchable. He doesn't confess, he calculates. He doesn't reveal, he withholds. And yet here I am, choosing to say something that could shift everything. Do you know what it costs a man like me to break his own silence? It's late right now. The kind of late where the world feels distant, like it's given up trying to reach you. There's a dim light in the corner of the room, barely enough to hold the shadows back. My jacket is still on the chair where I dropped it hours ago. I haven't moved it. I haven't moved much at all. I've been sitting here, thinking about you, not in the way you'd expect, not soft, not romantic, strategic. That's how I process everything. People, moments, risks. I measure outcomes before I allow emotions to exist. That's how I've stayed ahead. That's how I've never needed anyone. But you don't fit into calculations, and that bothers me more than I want to admit. Here's something I've never said out loud. I don't trust easily. Not because I've been betrayed too many times, but because I've seen how people change when they realize you care. That's the uncomfortable truth. The moment someone feels your attention deepen, something shifts. They lean back. They test boundaries. They stop earning what you once gave freely. And I promised myself a long time ago, I'd never be the man who gives someone that kind of power again. I built distance like a fortress. Not cold, just precise. So tell me, why is it that with you, I feel that structure starting to crack? I keep replaying the first moment I noticed it. Not when I met you, not when you smiled. No, it was something smaller. You paused. Most people rush to impress me, fill silence, prove themselves, but you didn't. You just looked at me, like you weren't trying to win anything, and for a second, just a second, I didn't know how to respond. Do you understand how rare that is? It wasn't attraction. It wasn't even interest. It was disruption, and I don't like being disrupted. There's a part of me that wants to shut this down before it grows into something I can't control. Cut it off clean. Walk away before attachment has time to take root. I've done it before. Many times. And every time, I told myself it was strength. But here's another truth I don't say. Sometimes walking away isn't strength. It's avoidance dressed up as discipline. Yeah, I said it. And I hate how accurate that feels right now. Because what scares me isn't you, it's what you're unlocking. You're making me question things I've already decided. Making me hesitate in places where I used to be certain. That doesn't happen to me. And if I let this continue, if I let you get closer, I don't know if I'll still be the man who always stays in control. So answer me this. What would you do if you felt someone slowly disarming every defense you've spent years building without even trying? Would you fight it, or would you lean in? I keep telling myself this is just a moment, a phase, something I can step out of when I decide to. But there's this quiet voice in the back of my mind, persistent, patient. It keeps asking me something I haven't answered yet. What if this isn't something to control, but something I was never meant to? And that question, it's still sitting here with me, unfinished. You think control makes a man safe. It doesn't. It just makes him harder to reach. That's the part no one tells you. I didn't become this way by accident. Every move, every decision, every calculated distance, I built it, layer by layer, not out of fear. At least, that's what I told myself. It was discipline, precision, a refusal to ever be at the mercy of anyone else's emotions. And for a long time, it worked. There's a memory I don't revisit often. A room full of people, laughter bouncing off glass walls, music low enough to pretend conversations mattered. I remember standing there, watching everyone perform versions of themselves, including me. I said the right things, smiled at the right moments, controlled the pace of every interaction like a quiet conductor. And yet, I felt nothing. Not emptiness, no. That would have been easier to admit. It was something colder, detachment. Like I had mastered the game so completely. I forgot why I ever started playing. That's when I realized something I never said out loud. Power without connection is just isolation with better lighting. Yeah, that one stayed with me. But instead of fixing it, I refined it. I made my world smaller, tighter. I chose who got access, when they got it, and how much they could take. No surprises, no risks. No one gets close enough to leave a mark. And then you showed up, and didn't follow the rules. You didn't try to impress me. You didn't orbit around me like everyone else. You just existed, calm, unaffected, almost like you didn't care whether I noticed you or not. Do you have any idea what that does to someone like me? It doesn't attract me the way you think. It challenges me, because I'm used to being the one who decides value. But with you, I couldn't tell if I was the one being evaluated. And that uncertainty, it stayed with me longer than it should have. Here's the uncomfortable truth I've avoided saying. I've built a life where I never have to feel unwanted. But that also means I've never allowed myself to truly feel chosen. There's a difference. One is control, the other is risk. And I've spent years convincing myself control was enough. But you don't respond to control. I've tried, subtle shifts, pulling back, giving just enough attention to keep distance intact. Any other person would have leaned in harder, chased more, revealed themselves trying to keep me interested. You didn't. If anything, you stayed exactly the same. And that's when it hit me. I can't predict you. That's dangerous. Because everything I've built depends on predictability. There was a moment, I don't even know if you noticed it. We were talking, and you said something simple, nothing dramatic. But the way you said it, there was no agenda behind it, no hidden expectation, just honesty. And I remember pausing for a fraction of a second longer than I should have, because I didn't know how to respond to something that wasn't trying to get something from me. Do you see the problem? I know how to navigate desire, ambition, even manipulation. But sincerity? That's unfamiliar territory. Part of me wants to pull back now, not slowly, completely. Erase the possibility before it grows into something I can't contain. That's what I've always done when something starts to matter too much. And every time, I tell myself it's discipline. But lately, that word doesn't feel as convincing. It feels like I've been calling something strength that might actually be fear. So, let me ask you something. If you've spent years becoming someone who never needs anyone, what happens when you meet someone who makes that version of you feel incomplete? Do you protect the identity you built? Or risk it for something you don't fully understand? Because I can feel the shift happening. Subtle, but undeniable. The way I think about you isn't calculated anymore. It's unstructured, uncontrolled, and I don't know where that leads, but I do know this. If I take one more step forward, I won't be able to pretend this is just curiosity anymore. And the truth is, I'm not sure I'm ready to find out what comes after that. Control didn't slip all at once. It fractured quietly. The kind of quiet you don't notice until you're already inside it. It was one of those nights where the world feels suspended. No noise outside, no movement, like everything decided to pause at the same time. I was in my room, lights dim, just enough to see the outline of things. My watch was still on my wrist, though I had nowhere left to be. That should have been my first sign. I hadn't switched off. I never do. But that night, something was different. I wasn't thinking about work. Not strategy, not outcomes, just you. And I didn't like how easily your name showed up in my mind. My phone was on the table, face down. I knew if I turned it over, your name would still be there from earlier, a message I hadn't responded to yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. That's not a position I'm used to. I've always known exactly what to say, exactly how much to give. Timing, tone, silence, it's all part of the system, but this time, every response felt wrong, too cold, and I risk losing something I don't fully understand yet, too open, and I give away something I've spent years protecting. So I did nothing, and somehow, that felt worse than either option. Here's the part I'm not proud of. I stared at that phone longer than I should have, not moving, not deciding, just suspended. Do you know what that feels like for someone like me? Indecision isn't hesitation, it's exposure. It means something has bypassed the filters, something got through without permission, and I kept asking myself the same question, over and over, why does this matter so much? I finally turned the phone over. Your name lit up the screen like it didn't belong there, like it had no right disrupting the order I've built. It wasn't even a complicated message, simple, direct, but it carried something I couldn't measure. Expectation. And that's when I felt it. Not fear, not exactly. Something deeper, the realization that whatever I say next could change the dynamic, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the one in control of it. Here's the pattern interrupt you're not expecting. Power doesn't disappear when you meet the right person. It gets challenged in ways you never trained for. I've dealt with pressure, high stakes, loss, competition. None of it felt like this, because this wasn't external. It was internal. And that's a battlefield I don't dominate as easily. as I pretend to. I leaned back in the chair, exhaled slowly, like I could reset my mind with one breath. Didn't work. Because the truth was already there, sitting with me. You weren't just someone I was interested in anymore. You were someone whose response mattered. And that changes everything. Uncomfortable truth? The moment someone's response starts to matter, you've already given up more control than you think. And I hate that. I hate how quickly that line can be crossed without realizing it. One conversation turns into anticipation, one moment turns into attachment, and suddenly, you're not as detached as you thought you were. I typed something, deleted it, typed again, paused. It shouldn't be this complicated, and yet, it was. Because I wasn't just replying to a message, I was deciding how much of myself I was willing to reveal, and I didn't have a clear answer. So let me ask you something. What would you do if you felt yourself starting to care, and you knew that caring would shift the power you've spent years holding on to? Would you pull back before it's too late, or would you risk saying something real and deal with whatever follows? I didn't send the message right away. I just sat there, staring at the screen, like it was waiting for me to make a decision I wasn't ready to make. And that's when it hit me. This isn't about you anymore. It's about what you're changing in me, the way I think, the way I hesitate, the way I question things that used to be automatic. And I don't know if that's something I should stop, or something I've been avoiding my entire life. Eventually, I did send something. Not everything I wanted to say, not everything I felt, just enough to keep the moment alive, without fully stepping into it. Calculated, controlled, safe. But even after I put the phone down, something didn't feel the same, because I knew, deep down, that message wasn't honest, not completely, and now there's something left unsaid. Something I held back on purpose. And the problem is, I don't know how much longer I can keep holding it back. Strength isn't what you think it is. It's not control. It's not distance. And it's definitely not the ability to walk away without looking back. That's what I used to believe. And maybe that's why I'm here now, questioning everything I was so certain about. It's late again. Not the same night, but it feels familiar. That same silence pressing against the walls, like it's waiting for something to break. I'm standing by the window this time, looking out at a city that doesn't care what I'm thinking. Lights on, lives moving, people pretending they're fine. I used to find comfort in that, knowing no one could see through me. Now, I'm not so sure, because the more I try to stay in control, the more I feel something slipping underneath it. I've always believed that emotions are liabilities. Useful in small doses, dangerous in the wrong hands. And love? Love is the highest form of risk. Not because it hurts, but because it reveals. It exposes the parts of you that you've spent years refining, editing, perfecting. And once someone sees that, you can't take it back. That's the part that never sat right with me. Let me tell you something I've never admitted. I've walked away from people who didn't deserve it. Not because they were wrong for me, but because they were getting too close to something real. I saw it in their eyes. The shift, the depth. And instead of leaning in, I shut it down, clean, efficient, no explanation. At the time, I called it clarity. Now, it feels more like fear, with better branding. Here's the uncomfortable truth you won't hear often. The stronger you become, the more skilled you get at avoiding the very thing you claim to want. Connection. Because real connection doesn't ask for your strength, it asks for your honesty. And honesty? That's where control starts to fall apart. You're different. Not because you try to be, but because you don't play the game. You don't chase. You don't pull away to create tension. You don't manipulate space to feel valued. You just show up, consistent, uncomplicated, and somehow that makes you more dangerous than anything I've ever dealt with. Because I don't know how to defend against something that isn't trying to control me. There was a moment earlier, small, almost forgettable. You said something honest, not dramatic, not emotional, just real. And I felt it, not on the surface, deeper, like it hit a place I haven't let anyone reach in a long time. And my first instinct, pull back, create distance, reestablish control. But this time, I hesitated, and that hesitation, that's new. So let me ask you something. What happens when the very thing you've spent your life avoiding starts to feel like the only thing that's real? Do you fight it? Or do you admit that maybe, just maybe, you've been wrong about what strength actually means? Because I'm starting to see it differently now. Strength isn't shutting people out, it's standing there, fully aware of what you could lose. and not running anyway. And I don't know if I've ever done that. Not truly. There's a part of me that still wants to retreat, to go back to what I know, what I control, what doesn't challenge me like this. That version of me is still here, still convincing, still logical. But there's another part now, quieter, more honest. And it keeps asking me something I haven't answered yet. What if this isn't a threat, but a chance to become someone I've never allowed myself to be? I don't have clarity yet, just tension, between who I've always been and who I might become if I stop resisting this. And the truth is, I don't know which version of me wins if I take one step closer to you, but I can feel that decision getting closer, and I'm not sure I'll be able to pretend it doesn't matter much longer. Needing someone is a dangerous position, not because it makes you weak, but because it reveals exactly where you can be broken. And I've spent years making sure no one ever found that point in me. It's quiet again tonight, but not the same kind of quiet. This one feels heavier, like the air knows something I haven't admitted yet. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, your last message still open. You said something simple, you always do, and somehow, it lingers longer than it should. I've read it more times than I'll ever admit. Not for the words, but for what's behind them. Here's the part I can't ignore anymore. I'm starting to wait for you. Not intentionally. Not in a way I'd ever show. But it's there. In the pauses between my decisions. In the moments where I check my phone without thinking. And I hate that. Because waiting implies dependence. And dependence has consequences. Let me be honest with you in a way I haven't been before. I don't know how to need someone without losing parts of myself. Every example I've seen, every pattern I've studied, it ends the same way. Someone gives more. Someone adjusts more. Someone slowly becomes less of who they were, just to keep the connection alive. And I promised myself that would never be me. But now, I'm not so certain, because what I feel around you, it's not pressure, it's not expectation, it's space. And that confuses me more than anything else. You're not asking for anything, not my time, not my attention, not even my consistency. And somehow, that makes me want to give it more. Explain that to me. Here's a pattern interrupt you probably didn't expect. The most dangerous person isn't the one who demands your attention. It's the one who never asks for it, because with them, everything you give is a choice. And choice, that's where things get real. I've always operated from a place of control. I decide the pace. I set the tone. I create the distance. But with you, I feel like I'm stepping into something without a map. No structure, no guarantees, just feeling. And I don't trust that. Not yet. So tell me this. What happens when a man who's built his entire identity on independence starts to realize that being alone isn't the same as being strong? What does he do with that? Does he double down on what he knows? Or risk everything on something he can't predict? Because I can feel the shift now. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. The way I think about you when I shouldn't. The way your presence lingers even when you're not here. The way I almost said something earlier and stopped myself at the last second. You didn't notice, but I did. I was about to tell you something real, not controlled, not measured, just honest, and right before I said it, something in me pulled back. That old instinct. Protect. Withhold. Stay ahead. And I listened to it, like I always do. But this time, it didn't feel right. It felt like I was repeating something I've done too many times before, holding back, just enough to stay safe, and missing out on something that might have been different. Uncomfortable truth? You don't lose people because you feel too much. You lose them because you never let them see it. And I've done that, more times than I care to admit. So now I'm here, in this moment, with a choice I can't ignore anymore. Keep being the man who never needs anyone, or become someone who risks being seen, fully, without knowing how it ends. And I don't know which version of me you'd even want. That's the part I haven't figured out yet. Because if I take that step, if I say what I almost said, there's no going back to this version of me, the controlled one, the distant one. He doesn't survive that kind of honesty. And the truth is, I don't know if I'm ready to let him go, but I also don't know how much longer I can keep pretending that I don't want to.